Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you the worst books of 2025. Overall, 2025 was just kind of a meh reading year. It was kind of just, I felt like how 2025 went just for me personally. It was just kind of, not a great year. And so there were a bunch of books that I could pull from. Some of them I just didn't like. I didn't think they were very good, and some were just kind of left me disappointed. So they're kind of all over in terms of genre too, and I have a few kind of popular books in here as well. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, I have a Spindle Splintered and a Mirror Mended by Alix Harrow. These were two audiobooks that I got from the library when I was in a bit of a audiobook kick. But basically it follows this girl who has this terminal illness, and she's always been obsessed with Sleeping Beauty fairy tales, just because she feels like that's kind of how she is. She's just gonna kind of have this eternal sleep, so she's very much related to that kind of fairy tale character. And in this case, she ends up touching a splinter, or the spindle, and gets transported to a fairy tale world. And I thought this one would be, fun, a little bit more lighthearted, but just the way it was written made it very mature. It is, you could tell the language is written for, older teenagers and people in their 20s, just with some of the explicitness in some of the words, but then it also just felt very immature. So it kind of just left a lot to be desired, and I felt like the main character in general didn't really have a lot of character development. Where we get introduced to her in the beginning is very similar to how we see her even at the end of the two books, so it was just kind of disappointing, and she was just very annoying. I didn't really like any of the characters, and I know it's not meant to be taken seriously, but I just still couldn't kind of connect with the writing style in this one. I just didn't like the way it was written, which is disappointing because I liked her, I think, what is it, The Once and Future Witches by this author, which I really enjoyed, but I just don't think I was the right audience for this. Next, I have The Berry Pickers, and I was really hoping this would really be a really impactful book, and there are certainly elements of this that I thought were really well done and kind of, heartbreaking, but it follows this First Nations family from Canada who work in kind of the Vermont, Massachusetts area across the Canadian border, where they are every summer to pick berries, and this family unit has always been kind of doing this for years, and this takes place kind of in the 70s onward, but one summer the youngest daughter goes missing, and this kind of tears the family apart, and it kind of talks about the fracture that causes in that family unit. But in addition to that, we follow this woman whose father has passed away. Now her mom has dementia and starts talking about things, so she's really trying to figure out who she is, and we kind of get the stories between the past and present storylines kind of get intermingled. But really, this is kind of a family story. It's a focus on loss, grieving, all these things, which again, I felt like this should have been a really spectacular read. But I just I didn't like the characters. I felt like the plot was very slow, and it felt repetitive as well. This one, like I said, I had really high hopes for, because I think it also could have, really gone into a lot of important themes, but I just didn't think the execution of it was great. Just for, I don't think it was, written in a way that really impacted me. I was expecting to be really emotionally invested in these characters, and I really just was annoyed with them. There was, again, kind of really it was just I wanted more. I wanted something that really kind of, I felt it. I felt what these characters were going through, and kind of this family saga spanning decades of how that fracture moment impacts these people for the rest of their life. And I really wanted that, but I don't know, it just felt really cyclic, and then it got to the point where it was just one bad thing after the other, which kind of got a little bit unrealistic at that point. So again, I had high hopes for this one, but I think just missed the mark with me. This one I'm sad to put in here, and it is Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray. This one, I love Libba Bray. I've loved her Diviner series. I remember being in high school reading the Gemma Doyle trilogy. I've loved her work for a really long time, and this is her newest release. And I think maybe because this one was more for a YA audience, maybe that's why I had a hard time connecting it, but it kind of follows 3 different storylines. The kind of the first page starts at the end, basically, where we follow 2 friends who are living in Germany during World War II, and it talks about their experience. One becomes involved with the resistance, and it kind of goes from there. We get another storyline kind of in West Berlin during the era of like the Berlin Wall, and someone who's kind of growing up with that. And then we also get kind of a pandemic storyline as well. So it kind of ties in these 3 like time periods that are kind of connected throughout, time, and there's like things that, they're interconnected, and you don't really know how, but it was just, like I said, I really enjoyed the World War II historical fiction timeline. If it was just focused on that, I think it would have been perfect. Like, I think it would have been a really well-written historical fiction, but because we added in these other storylines where it's like, I can't compare to this, rich girl who's in West Berlin who is just, mad at her parents for, moving her from like Texas to Germany. And so I'm like, I really can't compare what these girls are going through in Germany when their town is being infiltrated with Nazis and they're joining the resistance compared to someone who's just, joining a punk rock group. And then also like some of the stuff with the modern day. I thought it was really interesting to include the pandemic, and they talk about like protests, George Floyd, like all those things, and I think that's very important. But that kind of, West Germany storyline really lost me. And then also too with the pandemic one, which again I think is really important, something we've lived through, but again it was like, oh no, my crush hasn't talked to me, or like these things. So again it was just like, World War II, I had to move, or like these things. So it was really hard to kind of just really feel sorry for these characters when some of the other characters are like, this is bad, basically. So that's what it was like. It was just, I just wanted that focus on the World War II historical timeline. I think that would have been perfect. It was really moving. I really loved the focus of friendship and sisterhood and all those things. So again, it was just one where it was like, it gave too much, I think, and it really, especially when you have one that's so well written too for all the other characters with the woe is me, let me pull up my like small little violin for you, like it was just like, I just was basically like, I want to skip these chapters just to get back to, the World War II storyline. So it just disappointed me. Next I have Orbital, and I was really hoping to like this, and it just really wasn't for me. But basically the premise of this book is like a short novella basically of these astronauts that are in the International Space Station, and we get kind of just a window into who these characters are, and also it's kind of more like tied into, what does it mean like to be, really what is the meaning of life basically, like, and it's like a love letter to Earth, which was interesting. But this one was just, again, it was not great. I heard really great things. I know this is really, critically praised, but I didn't get it. Like, I don't know why this book is, so critically well received. It just was like literally listing things. It was just list after list after list. So it'd be like, oh, now we're passing through, we can see North America, then South America, then Africa. And then it's like, oh, and look at all the Great Lakes. There's Lake Superior, Lake Erie. Like, it just listed things all in all. And so it was just like a list, basically. One continuous list. There wasn't anything. Like, I felt like if it really kind of touched into how small we are, like how small we are when we look at ourselves from that scale from space, and it could have really have touched on really, interesting themes, but just because it was like, oh, what will I have for dinner, and it's just like listing things. It was just lists. And so I was like, I could write that, but it was just not great. And again, it was just, I think the execution of this was really poor. I think honestly this one is probably my least favorite book of the entire year, and it is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was one that I was really hoping to enjoy. It just felt like it had such an interesting premise, and it fell flat. It follows basically, again, kind of 3 storylines. I think one's like in the 1500s, one is kind of in the 1800s Victorian era, and then also kind of a present day one as well, and it follows basically lesbian vampires. My husband also read this one too, and he was not a fan of it either. I even tried to read it as a physical book, and then I just like DNF'd it, and then I was like, you know what, my hold for the audiobook came in from the library, I'll try to finish it that way. And again, it was just not great. I think it was, and I don't know why this book has a really, pretty good Goodreads review. I think people just really are like, it's lesbian vampires, it's great, but I think there was a lot of issues. I think there were a lot of, important themes on, I guess, like violence in terms of survival. All those, there were like really interesting themes woven throughout, and I really loved the LGBTQ spin on this topic. But I don't think the execution was great. I felt like it just really dragged on. There were parts where literally the story didn't go anywhere, and I just really did not like the present day main character. She was so whiny. It was just like, again, woe is me. And I'm like, there, like, even on one other character storyline, I was like, was much worse, and I have a really hard time to feel sorry for you. She was just mopey, and again, it was just kind of annoying. I didn't like the characters. There were some interesting, like, especially because it kind of covers, in some cases, like hundreds of years worth of time, and I love that historical setting, but again, it just wasn't great. It was way too long. And again, I just didn't really care for the characters and what they were going through. So yeah, I think this is my least favorite book of the year. Next, I have Spells for Forgetting. And this one is, again, one that I thought that would be really fun based on the premise or like the synopsis, and it just wasn't great. So it follows this woman who lives on this very small island off the coast of Washington, and this island's very unique because the women who live there kind of have some like witchy powers, basically. There's some magical realism aspects into this, and I want to say, like, 10, maybe 15 years ago, there was a big fire, there was this big controversy, someone died, and the guy who was blamed for it, who never really, no charges were filed against him, even though he was suspected of being behind it, comes back, and it causes this stir of character. Like, it causes this string of events and kind of brings up what happened in the past. And again, this sounds like it would be something really interesting. I really enjoyed the kind of writing of the island. The island felt like a character of itself. There's, fog. There's this kind of eeriness, the sense of like being watched by the island, and I thought that was really well done. But again, it came down to the characters. There was one review on Goodreads which I thought was funny, and it was just like, this is a lot of drama for, a few apples, and if you had read that, you would understand. But again, I agree. It was just like, it got to the point where it was a little bit unbelievable, and like some of the stuff that happened, again, it was just like, I just found it very unbelievable. And some of the characters too, the main female character in this one, she is just like, again, woe is me, and she doesn't really have much of her personality, and a lot of the conflict and tension could easily be solved with a simple conversation between the characters. And when they, would maybe potentially start to talk about something, a car catches on fire, or like all these things would come to prevent that, and I don't like that as a literary tool. So again, this one was, again, I felt like the vibes were there, but the story and the characters just weren't. And lastly, this is again going to be a controversial one. It is Remarkably Bright Creatures, and again, this one sounded like it would be just a really fun, heartwarming story. And what is interesting about this book is that some chapters are told from an octopus point of view, who is living in this aquarium in this small town. And I did really enjoy his chapters, but they were few and far between. But basically the premise of the story is that we follow this older woman whose husband has passed away, and her son disappeared when he was 18, and his body was never found. And so she's kind of dealing with that grief, and she works as kind of a custodian at the aquarium in the evening. And then we also get this other perspective of this man whose mother kind of left him, but there is some sort of connection to that aquarium that really draws him near, and obviously the stories get intermingled. I felt like the big reveal of who, you know, this guy is to the storyline and like who he is was very obvious. I guessed it from the beginning, and that male character is basically just a big man-child. When I was reading over the reviews, there's people who really love it, and again, people who just could not stand this character, and I could not stand him. He was a big man-child, he was a baby, emotionally, you know, like very emotionally immature, all these things, and it was just so annoying because I felt like the chapters from, you know, the octopus and then also of the woman who has gone through so much loss in her life and her overcoming the grief, I felt like were really well done. But again, this character just ruined it for me. It was just like, you need to grow up, you need therapy, you need to focus on your emotions, and it was just like kind of eye-rolling sometimes with how immature this 30-year-old man was. So I was really disappointed with that. I know this is going to be I think a movie on Netflix, so I think I might like the movie a little bit better if they like tweak some of these things, because I do feel like it really focuses on grief and loss and kind of how do you kind of move past experiencing that and, you know, finding meaning in life again without these people in your life. And so I think, again, it had really important themes, but this one character ruined it for me. So again, wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad book, because I did find some parts to be really impactful, especially with that character's, you know, development and growth throughout the book. But I felt like it was just tainted by this man-child character, and it just was disappointing. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your kind of worst books were of 2025 and all of that stuff, or if you disagree or agree with any of the things that I've, you know, talked about in here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.